right, everybody, it's Lowry Olafson here, and welcome to the Roots of Resilience show. Today, I am very, very thrilled to have a special guest. Saber Fatnassi is a speaker and a peak performance consultant, and I have worked with him personally, and I've heard him speak, and I've seen him work his magic, and this is a man who knows a great deal about resilience, and more than resilience, he knows about how to thrive in difficult times. And really, so welcome, Saber. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. What a lavish introduction. Thank you.
Well deserved. Well deserved, that's for sure. So your background is in athletics, right? As an elite athlete?
Yes, my background is in athletic as well as leadership. I had quite a bit of share in leadership positions, either in private organizations or public service.
Okay, and so what I noticed is that you seem to feel like there's a lot of overlap between those, those kinds of things when it comes to managing energy. And so for people who are in high stress, high stakes kinds of jobs, do you think it's possible for people to thrive when they're in super, super demanding situations like that, or should they just roll over and die?
My direct answer all the time is yes, everything is possible. There's no doubt about it. If one person can do it, and this is a matter of statistics, if one person can do it, the question at that time does not become can I, it becomes how. So if we have million athletes, million executives, million nurses, million doctors, and one of those million is able to thrive in a high stress environment,
right?
My next question is, how did he do it so I can do it? It's not a question about can I, it's how.
That's a great question. So what do you think, where does the how begin?
The how begins by, as all the time, and you and I talked about this before, is knowing self, knowing who I am. Because for me to accept what the other person did, so at least I can copy what they did. So if we talk about high stress environment, let's talk about, to me, athletes and CEOs that live in a high stress environment. Nurses live in a high stress environment. So if we talk about nurses, for example, where do we start? The million nurses that we talked about earlier, and there's one nurse who can actually thrive in that high stress environment. And for me to know if I can copy at least what that nurse does, I need to understand first who I am to be able to understand if I can copy that or what I need to modify so it can work for me. There are no two people in the world that are identical. There isn't. Even the twins are not identical.
Right.
Right. So it's not 100% copy and paste. I'm not going to clone somebody else exactly the way they do things because they have their own way of doing things. I can take most of what I have and I can apply it to myself and see how I can adapt it to myself. That's the way to go about it. And that's why you see a lot of people when they talk about success and they talk about copy the successful people. Well, copy the successful people. What can you copy and what can you change? What that successful person did is not exactly what will work for me. It could be a fraction of a percent to change, but that fraction of a percent would make the world difference because if I apply everything he did and it doesn't go exactly the way for me as it did for him or for her, then I'm going to say it doesn't work.
Right. So are you saying it starts with self-awareness?
It starts with self-knowing, yes. When we say self-awareness, it's a kind of big term. And nowadays, everybody talks about awareness, everybody talks about consciousness. So I would like to take it more to more realistic perspective about it. It's not that awareness is not realistic. It's just the way we talk about nowadays that it sounds kind of a little vanilla. And when we talk about awareness, you cannot grab it, you cannot put your hands around it. So let's bring it to more of to the conscious mind for understanding. What is self-awareness? Is really understanding what ticks for me. Is really understanding what makes me happy and what does not make me happy. It's really understanding when I do something, why I really do it. What is the reason behind doing it? Generally speaking, the first answer to that is not it. And probably the second and third answer probably are not it. So again, if you talk about nurses, if you ask a nurse, why did you become a nurse? That's a loaded question. Generally speaking, the first answer is not the answer. Why? Because we think about it consciously. So my question to, if I was speaking to a nurse now, and I would say, or if I was speaking to an athlete now, I would say, why did you want to become an athlete? And I will try to get the answer from their unconscious mind, not from their conscious mind. Because with the conscious mind, they're going to think about all the logical and good answers that make sense. And that's not what works. What works is what is aligned with you for doing whatever it is that you want to do or you're doing right now.
So would that be like connecting back to a moment in your life when you said, this is what I want to do with my life, or, that kind of thing?
That's one of the things. That's one of the ways. So if we're talking about, as an example, if you're talking about hypnosis, in hypnosis, there are work that's called life regression. What people do is just if I was to do life regression with you, I'll just we spend some time so you can be an induction and you go to trance. Then we go little by little in your life to go to a specific moment of your life to understand why you did that you did at that point. Okay, that's one of the ways. Another way of just doing it now without doing any hypnosis, without doing any trance, is actually to talk about it, to do conversational hypnosis, to talk about why did you, for example, you, Lowry, why did you start this podcast? Okay, probably the first answer would be just it's good for my business, right? Yeah. Then I would say, okay, why is it good for your business? And you would say, well, because it just brings more revenue for the business. And how does it do that? You would say, because it talks to the right audience. Great. Who are the right audience? You would say people in high stress, for example, nurses. And why do you want to do that for your nurses? Well, because it helps them. How does it help them? It helps them live better and do their jobs better. And why is that important to you? You would say, because when I help them do that, I feel even more complete. Mm-hmm. And you see how many levels we went to come to really why you wanted to do that thing?
Yes, plus I get all the learning myself as well.
Exactly.
Right? That's what I really love about this is that that pieces that I get to ask questions of people like you and learn and bring that stuff to my own life, right?
That's us. And by the way, I did not mean to answer for you. I was just making a scenario. I don't know if you would answer that way, but I was just making a scenario.
So if people are in this immediate situation, they're really overwhelmed, they're burnt out, and they want they just need some some ways to kind of like grab onto the lifeboat right now. And it's like, okay, well, I haven't really got time to go into deep self-evaluation. Can they, or do you have ideas about what would you do in the moment in terms of self-care or actions that people could take that would change? Like one of the things that I love that I learned from you, and by the way, people, Saber has an amazing podcast, which has, I don't know how many episodes. How many episodes do you have of that?
I think so far is over 140. I think.
Oh my heavens. And these are so good. These are, I've listened to dozens of them, and they're full of really great information. But when you talk about the 7 levels of energy, for me, that was a game changer. This idea that, we just kind of think, oh, well, this is, that's how I feel. I'm just kind of down. And then some days could you just talk a little bit about that for people?
Sure. And if you don't mind, I will definitely answer your question and talk about the 7 levels of energy. But before I do that, I wanted to go back to a little thing you said about the same people that are living in a high stress environment. I'm trying to grab into this thing. I don't have time to find out by myself.
Yeah.
That by itself is a very dangerous start.
Right.
If I can mimic that to another situation, if you have somebody who wants to be healthy, and they know that working out is an essential matter of living healthy. And they know that only it takes is 10 minutes a day to work out, to do a good workout, to live healthy. And they would say, I don't have 10 minutes. If you don't have 10 minutes for yourself to live healthy, why do you even live?
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes.
And I guess that's kind of where I'm going, because what I notice sometimes is that 10 minutes to, run up the hill or go for the walk or something like that is a really transformational thing that
Exactly.
people can do, even if they haven't got a lot of self-awareness, or, they haven't delved deep into, the meaning and the sort of the deeper levels. But, that's definitely an action that makes me feel better.
Absolutely. And it's an investment.
Yeah.
There's no better investment than the one you put in yourself. Any investment you have in the house, in the car, and we all know these things. I'm not trying to repeat what we all know, but any investment that we put in the world, it's in the world. Any investment you put in yourself, in what you learn and what you can do and how you think about yourself and how you can do things will always go with you no matter where you go, no matter where you end up doing. It doesn't matter. You invest in yourself, you take it with you. There's a lesson I learned long time ago when I was a soccer player. And my uncle told me, look, the knowledge you have in your mind, you take with you anywhere you go. If you get kicked in the foot and you have broken leg, nobody will care for you. Now, I'm glad that did not happen and I played soccer in my life. But the idea is when you invest in yourself, no one can take it away from you. And when you invest in yourself, you take it with you anywhere you go and you can build on that. There's no way any one of us can do better than what we do now without investing more of what we have already invested.
Well, and I got to say, from my own personal experience of the work that I did with you, that investment in that kind of stuff for me has really, my energy levels are significantly higher and more consistent. And, uh, in terms of building resilience, uh, I find that stuff quite remarkable. And
Beautiful.
like you say, you get to keep it, right? You take it with you.
Exactly. And the more you talk about it, the more it helps you. And by the way, just for anybody whoever is listening to us, we're not asking you to get anything. We're just telling you to invest in learning for free. This is something for you to learn, which is something that we share right now. Just want to make sure that we're not taking anybody to a side. But the way to learn about it is to actually go, for example, and like you mentioned, Lowry, when you go to the podcast is free. It's not taking you anything. All that it's taking is your time to listen to it. And
Mhm.
you have the power to decide if it's for you or not for you, or to forward or to go backwards, or to listen to 30 seconds, or listen to the entire 20 minutes. As long as you're willing to invest in yourself, you may find only 5 minutes from that episode that's worthwhile to you, and you take it and you go with it.
Mm.
Now, going back to the 7 levels of energy that you were talking about. And I think you want me to focus on probably on more nurses and people in the medical field,
Well,
right?
not necessarily. I think a lot of the people, the audience has really expanded for this show now to really just include a lot of people that are in high stress situations, and quite frankly, even people who are retired, and
Okay.
they're looking at kind of like how can they have more meaning and more energy in their lives. I would say everybody feels overwhelmed a lot of the time, and so yeah, but for sure, yeah, a lot of the people that I speak to most and do workshops with are healthcare professionals.
Okay. So let's talk to the healthcare professionals. So kind of we have
Sure.
a customized answer for them, and
Yeah.
we can talk about the retired individuals as well, so we can have a better answer for them as well. And if that does not answer enough people, you tell me and I will answer them.
Okay.
So if you're talking about the healthcare professionals, generally speaking, when we talk about caregivers, either nurses or even parents, if we talk about the 7 levels of energy, that comes in level 4. What is level 4 energy? This is where the person lives on service. What does it mean? It means that they feel satisfied because they give service to somebody else. They just love helping other people. And if you ask most nurses, besides the ones that would say, okay, that's the field that is on demand now, and that's I want for it because just to get a job. But at the same time, you find a plethora of nurses, a large number of people that just did it because, or they're doing it because they love what they do. They want to help people. Now,
It's about giving. Level
it's
4
about
energy
giving.
is about giving.
Exactly, because they thrive on seeing the satisfaction of the other person. They thrive on giving and helping somebody else.
Hmm.
The back door to that level 4, as you may recall, is level 1 energy. Level 1 energy is where the person feels victim and feels unworthy and feel they're not appreciated. Why? Because when we serve others and we give them everything that we have, and we expect in one thing, we expect in satisfaction, and we don't see from them any satisfaction, any sign of satisfaction, not even a thank you. That gives
Appreciation.
us no appreciation. Exactly. That gives us the feeling of not being appreciated.
Yeah.
And when I'm not appreciated, what would I do? If I take the example that I probably shared with you before, if I'm in the mall, if you're in the mall and you open the door to me and I go through the door, I don't even look back, I don't even say thank you. What's the first thing that goes to your mind?
You're resentful.
You're resentful because I'm ungrateful,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So if we get ourselves in that dilemma, that's exactly what makes the healthcare professional feel the way they feel stressed, feel they're overwhelmed. Why? Because it doesn't matter what I do, they don't appreciate it. And that appreciation could come either from the patient themselves, it could come from the administration, it could come from your coworkers, anybody, because it's all one environment, it's all connected. As soon as you see signs of an appreciation or lack of worthiness, that's where the mind goes first. So to take a moment and to really understand why you do what you do, and to understand why you do what you do, you got to understand yourself. Who am I? What's next to me? Why did I choose this? How do I act when people do these things? How do I act when people do the others? And why do I act that way, not the other way? Where did that response come from in the first place? Did I learn it recently? Was I like this before? Is this recent now because of how they treat me? Or I have been this way all my life? And if I have been this way all my life, why I have been this way all my life? Maybe because it served me for most of my life. Now it doesn't seem to serve me. Why not? What changed? All these answers help the person, and they don't take too long, by the way. I'm not saying it's an easy work. Understanding self is never an easy work. If it was that easy, people would not be overwhelmed and would not be stressed.
Right.
But it's not impossible.
So, so the first three levels of energy are all kind of a low quality of energy. And then 4 is kind of like the transition point, the giving. And then 5, 6, and 7 are all higher levels where you make different choices around, like, the giving of itself isn't the thing. It's, like level 5 is kind of a win-win, and level 6 is where everything's a win, and level 7's where you're just in the zone and you're just on fire and you're not thinking. So in those positions, you're less likely to be resentful, I guess, because you have a different perspective on it. Or
yes, you have different perspective, and just a little bit of modification. So levels 1, 2, and 3 are not necessarily the low level of energy. And when we say levels 1 through 7, we're not saying that levels 1 and 2 and 3, because they are low in number, they're bad level of energy. We're not saying that. What we're saying is they exist, and you will need a lot more of that kind of energy to achieve the same results that if you had the other kind of energy.
Oh, okay.
Here's an example. Right. Here's an example. So at level 1, as I shared with you earlier, level 1 is where the person feels the victim state, and it doesn't matter what they do, nothing is going to change, and life is not good to me, people are not good to me, life is not fair, and it's not going anywhere. So what would I even do it? This is a level where people kind of just, there's no need to do it. I just give up, right?
Yeah.
Level 2 is a little higher. Why? Because it is still not that empowering level of energy, but the person feels frustrated. So there's a difference between saying life is not fair, and I crawl on the couch and eat ice cream and watch a movie for the weekend, or I say life is not fair and I don't like that, and I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to change whatever it is. I'm going to go to fight people or whatever it is, but I'm not going to sit down. That at least gives you a little bit of energy to go and do something about it.
Right.
Right. But it is still surrounded with a lot of frustration, with energy that is draining. So imagine if you were going to change something in your life and all it is filling you is a frustration. How much of that energy would you need to get the goal you want to get?
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Level three is where we experience more of the sense of responsibility. So instead of blaming somebody else like we do in level 2, we will take sense of responsibility, and you would say, okay, maybe I'm treated that way because maybe how I present myself, or maybe I did certain things that made people understand me a certain way. I did not mean it that way, but that's how they understood me. So
Yeah.
how can I change it so they don't understand me that way? So that's level 3.
Yes.
And it's still lower in the scale of energy. It doesn't mean it's bad. It's just lower because you're still thinking about self. What did I do? Right? Level 4, like we talked about it earlier, is the service level, and it can fire back with level 1. I'm giving, and I like to give, and I like to give. And most people don't think about it that way, by the way, because they feel they love to give. Coaches live in this environment. Healthcare professionals live in this environment. Parents live in this environment.
Right.
Have you ever heard a kid? Have you ever heard a parent say about their kids? They don't even say thank you. All the things they do for them, they don't even say thank you.
Well, yes, absolutely. But before that level of what the other thing you hear people say, I mean, that's where the resentment comes in. But then people talk about it just feels so good to give, right? And how great it feels
Exactly.
really to feel like you're making a difference and to feel like what you're doing is, but like you say, yeah, and then the kid doesn't say thank you. It's like ungrateful,
Right.
little
Right.
brat, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a human nature. It's a human nature. I take my responsibility for saying what I'm going to say. Okay. We all do whatever we do for a reason, for something back.
Yes.
We all expect something back from whatever it is that we do. That doesn't make us bad creatures. It doesn't make us bad people. It just translates what happens. We do things for something back. And when we say something back, we're not talking about dollars or cars or anything necessarily. We talk about even a smile. We talk about even a head nod, whatever it is. We
Yeah.
just want something back. We're human beings. We're not robots. We're human beings. We do something for something back. So it's very important to understand that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's number 4.
Okay.
Is the service. It's beautiful, but as long as it stays within its scope. What's its scope? Is I really understand what I want back from whatever I'm doing. And I am satisfied with that. So if I was a nurse and I say, okay, I'm serving and I'm happy with giving. Okay? My next question to you would be, what is it that you expect him back? Is it just a smile? Is it just giving and nothing? Is it the salary? Is it recognition? What do you expect back that makes you satisfied?
So it's
And
a
if you
win.
don't, yeah, so it is a win.
So it's a win for you as well as for the person that you've given to.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that makes it a win-win. They win and you win. And that takes us to level 5. So when you accomplish that, you take your energy to level 5 energy, which is characterized by the win-win. Also, people at level 5, they look for opportunities everywhere. This is where you find a lot of entrepreneurs. They'll walk in the street and they see a lot of possibilities. I can do this, I can do that, I can do this, I can do the other. But at the same time, they end up probably doing one or probably nothing, because they have their mind around every idea, but they don't go deep enough to analyze which one is worth tackling. But at the same time, they live at the win-win because they know it doesn't matter what they do, they're gonna win. And when they think it doesn't matter what they do, meaning whenever I approach anything in life, I'm going to get something out of it, that takes us to level 6. As an example, you and I are in this podcast. Okay. If I started the thinking of the podcast, why am I going in this podcast with Lowry? What am I going to get out of it? Okay. If I tell myself, okay, it's an hour or whatever it is time that we're spending together, I'm not getting any dollars out of it. I'm not getting any people out of it. I already put myself in levels
1
and 2. That's
yeah,
right.
and 2. Yeah.
However, if I say I'm going to this podcast, I have a chance to share my message with which one of my messages I wanted to do in the world. I have a chance to share my message. I have a chance to possibly impact at least one person who's listening. They may learn something to change their life. And as long as I know that I have the possibility to do that, even without meeting that person in my life at all, even I don't have a confirmation if anybody learned from it, I know that all what I have from this session is a possibility, is a chance that one person in 7 billion may benefit from it. That is a win for me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go in with a win already without even being there. So before I come to this session to talk to you, I already know I am winning.
Right.
So that's the perspective. So that's level 6. Level 7, this is where I call the la la land. This is where we don't go there often, because if we do go there often, people will take us kind of aloof and they cannot connect with us. This is when, generally speaking, when you have those clarity of mind, when you can write stuff and you don't know where it came from, where you can connect with somebody and all of a sudden they're calling you. You think of a person and they call you, and you call that telepathy. That's the level of energy of level 7. You cannot be there 24 hours thinking of people and they're calling you, because you just would be disconnected from the world. That's quickly the 7 levels of energy.
Okay, so I think I misunderstood level 7 all this time. That's a good thing. See, it's good you came on this podcast, Saber, because I think of that one as being like in the zone, right? That level 7. And so to me, like if you're on the soccer field, it's kind of like everything's, you're going around and nobody can catch you and you're doing that stuff. Or, if you're performing, you're just kind of so present and so in it. But it seems to me kind of like, even like, a conversation like this one, to me, when you're so interested in what's being said and you're learning and you kind of, time, that idea that time just disappears, it goes so fast and it's like, oh my heavens, are we, we're out already. To me, is that level 7 or is that more at 6 kind of thing?
No, that is a level 7. But as the examples you mentioned, in a soccer field, you're not there 24 hours.
Right.
In this conversation, that we're not there 24 hours. So you have that moment that you decide it is your zone moment. And when we say moment, the reason we say moment, we don't say minute, because it is not specific. It's whatever you decide that moment is. Even a soccer player on the pitch, they're not 90 minutes in that exact moment. So they could be the first half of the game, 45 minutes in it. And even in the 45 minutes, they still hear people talking. They still hear their coach calling. They still hear their teammates calling, but they could be in and out. But they spend most of their time in that zone moment. They know exactly where the players are. They know exactly where the ball is. They know how they need to move. They know when they don't move, and they even can kick the ball without looking at the cage, because they know exactly where the cage is based on their position in the field. So yes, that's level 7. You can live in that. That's why when you talk about athletes or you talk with performers, they all want to live in that zone as much as possible, because it comes and goes. It doesn't stay there. So part of the job as we do is how to repeat the process so we can create that moment versus the moment happening itself.
Right. So for sure, getting rid of resentment would be, to be looking at, well, what is in this for me? And yeah, and I mean, I love the idea of level 6, that everything's a win, because we talked about, that kind of thing when you're doing something for somebody and they're not responding the way you want them to, or they're not appreciating you or whatever, and you think, well, I'm just practicing on them, like there's this CEO or this patient or whatever. It's like I'm developing my skills, and so I can't lose, because whether they appreciate me or not, I'm becoming a better professional at this. And so, really is such a different attitude than thinking, that ungrateful, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And if we talk about resentment, I'm sure everybody knows the proverb. Resentment is exactly like a person drinking poison and hoping somebody else would die.
Right. I know, and yet so many people live, I certainly do. I mean, it's so easy to live in that, right?
It never worked and will never work.
No, but what I really, the other piece of this that I think is really important for people to know that you talk about is to develop an awareness of which level you're at. So, if things go wrong and you're having a really tough time and your world's falling apart, and you need to go down into level 1 and just kind of withdraw and lick your wounds for a while, and like do that in itself is not a terrible thing to do. It's, it serves that need, but it's like, okay, well, this is where I am right now. I'm not going to stay here because this won't get me where I want to go ultimately, but right now it's exactly what I need. You've had a devastating time, I mean, for a nurse, I mean, they deal with life and death situations. I lose patience. I mean, some days obviously you need to just regroup, and give yourself what you need, right? Before you step back. You can't always be, oh, it's fine, I'll be fine, right? So I love that idea of knowing where we're at with that stuff, right? I just found, the stuff that you do, Saber, is to me is really unlike anything I've seen anybody else do.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really, really, really proud of you. Everything you just said right now tells me that the time we spent together was absolutely worth it. Because exactly what you said, unlike what we shared earlier, levels 1 and 2 and 3 or any other level, there's no bad level of energy. That's why if it was bad, we don't want to go back to it. But as you said, if you feel the need to feel a victim, and that's how you feel right now. And that's how I want to feel right now. And that's how I want to spend my weekend. And I want to crawl on the couch. I want to eat ice cream Saturday and Sunday for 3 days, whatever it is, and eat chocolate and watch movies just and soul for three days. And that's what I really feel that I need. That's absolutely fine. That's what you need. That's awareness of who you are. The key, as you said, and I'm glad you still remember that, is to decide. First of all, know that it is a temporary and decide when to get out of it. This is not going to be forever. This is not my life. This is just for this hour or these 3 days or this weekend. And I'm going to be in it now because I feel I need it. And I'm going to acknowledge it and respect it and live it. But I know once the time is there, I'm going to get out of it. Where am I going next? So if you feel victim now, how do I want to feel next? Do I want to feel frustrated? Do I want to feel responsible? Maybe I want to feel responsible. Okay. What am I going to do to feel responsible? Okay. I'm going to go back, find out what happened, see where I possibly contributed to the situation and how I can change what I contributed to make it better next time. That alone gives me peace of mind. That alone tells me that I participated in the situation and probably was not as bad as I thought about it. But still, I needed my time to crawl on the couch and I did. And now I'm going to change it.
Well, and then, like for me, I used to spend a lot of time kind of frustrated in level 2 kinds of things. And I would do my business development kind of stuff, being kind of frustrated and not, cold calling and not liking that kind of thing. And so one of the key things, this is, me being honest about myself. But one of the key things that I realized is like, this is not a good, people totally know that you're just not in a place of, you're not even really fully yourself, right? So one of the things that you do is you get people to change your state so that you get, okay, if I'm going to be doing this, I need to be at least at a level 5. So what am I going to do? Maybe I need to go for a run or a walk, or maybe I need to go and have coffee with a friend, or maybe what can I do to change my state? So maybe you could talk about that to people, about how do you get out of those and get yourself into a better place, a higher level of energy, I'll say.
Sure. And again, I would not say necessarily a higher level of energy as long as you know what level of energy you need to be in. One important distinction also I would like to mention to you and to your listeners is we don't stay at one level of energy the entire day or the entire week. We just go up and down. That's normal. Sometimes we feel great and amazing and I'm taking on the world, and other times I just take a dip and I don't feel good. Energy just goes down. I don't have enough food in me. It's been a long day. I just want to take a little nap, whatever it is. And then take up again and just do something else. So it's normal to go up and down. What we want to do is to find that level of energy that is comfortable to us so we can spend more time at that level versus going up and down too much. Right? So if you feel you're comfortable at level 5, and for example, for you, Lowry, you like level 5, it's just kind of win-win. I can do a lot of things at level 5, or probably I can go to level 7 whenever I choose to. That is the power of this level energy thing. That is the power of it. The power of it is to really know where you are at any time, to really decide where you want to be, and to have your steps to get there. And
Yes.
when it's not there, you really know. So you really create that awareness of yourself at any moment. You create the status that you want to be. It just doesn't happen to you. And it is the whole goal of the energy levels, to really understand where you are, where you want to be, and go there on demand, not by chance.
Right. And so then it's like having strategies or taking actions or something to change that, to transform your energy level, right? Would you say that that's an important piece of I mean, it seems to me it's not even just resilience, it's also like how to have more joy in your life.
Well, well, that's the kind of the side effect, if you will, of doing this kind of work. Any of my clients that I work with, they come for a specific reason. If they're CEOs, they want to have their companies world class. If they're athletes, they want to be at their top game every single time. The side effect of that is there's no way you can change who you are without having an impact everywhere else in your life. It doesn't happen. So if you want to become a better athlete, there's no way you can become a better athlete and a lousy husband or wife. It doesn't work that way. If you want to you want to become a better leader and better CEO and world-class company, there's no way you can have $1 billion company and you're a great leader and you don't have a good relationship with your kids. It doesn't work like that, because like we talked about earlier, it's about who you are, not what you do.
But what about people that are, like workaholics, or I mean, you hear like Steve Jobs, for instance. I mean, people hold him up as being this, high example of, I guess, although I guess he was difficult to work with, all that kind of thing. But, then like a guy, he was denying paternity of his own child, and he's making 200 million and his wife's on welfare.
Well, like everybody else, I respect Steve Jobs. But why do people respect Steve Jobs? Because people have an understanding of success in a certain way. Okay, Steve Jobs is an amazing person. God bless his soul. We don't talk about past people only in a good way, but we don't know if he was happy or not. Nobody knows. All what we know is he created Apple. He made these amazing things for humanity, and we're always in debt to him for what he created for this universe. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Was he happy as a person? That's something we don't know.
Right. Yeah, and you're talking really more about balance and fulfillment and meaning and quality, a real quality of life, uh, how we feel about our day and how much fulfillment we have, and ultimately, I keep coming back to this word joy all the time. So.
And right. And by the way, the other part that we didn't talk about Steve Jobs yet is it could have been that's what he decided to be, and that's what brought him joy. So when I say we don't know if he was joyful or not, because he can say whatever he wants to say. We actually don't know. Only him knows. Only he knows if he was joyful or not. But at the same time, it could have been that's how he did frame his life to create happiness and joy for him.
Right.
And if you have the same thing and you find exactly what makes you happy, and you don't care what people say about you, you don't care about how people see it, as long as you see it making you happy, then that's what you need to do. Because you live your life, people don't live your life, you don't live theirs.
Right.
So when we talk about Steve Jobs, for example, you took that example. Steve Jobs is, as an example, we talk about him and he's not present. We can't really tell how we can take that. But if he was happy the way he lived his life, nobody has an argument for why he was the way he was.
Yeah. I guess, to me, it's just kind of like, um, I don't know, maybe he's a bad example because he wouldn't be somebody who's, even though he's had, major impact, it certainly isn't an example of, humanity. I mean, he's held up as a leader and, somebody with focus and that kind of thing. But to me, I think it's pretty easy to get into a role of judging somebody that's so unkind to people in his life as being, that's not a role model I want, right?
But see, even what you just said, Lowry, said when we say unkind, By what standard we say that?
Well, I mean, to have that much money and and have your wife be on welfare, that's pretty much anybody's standard, I would say. And to
Okay.
be, arguing about the paternity of your child, that's pretty clear definition.
Exactly. So what you just said, and again, by the way, I'm not arguing if he is or he's not. I'm only talking about a situation. Um, Everything we take is based on the filters we have. Okay. I don't know how much we know about the situation.
Exactly. Yeah.
And like every coin, it has two sides.
Sure.
I repeat, I'm not taking his side or against him. I'm
Yeah.
only talking about the situation. So we know only what we know. And whatever we know, we take through our filters and we interpret it and translate it based on our own experiences. And we store it in our mind. When we talk about it again, we take from that storage and we interpret it again and talk about it based on our own experience.
Mm-hmm.
So in the end, it's our own experience. We don't know enough about him or anybody else to say that this was good or bad, wrong or right.
To stand in judgment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you remember when we're talking about the levels of energy, what does judgment do?
Well, I would think it would put you down in the low threes.
Exactly. And if you actually can sense it right now, and if your listeners, probably they would sense it, even our levels of energy in our conversation dropped.
Yes.
Because we're talking about that judgment. It doesn't matter who talks about it, as long as you're involved in that environment of energy.
So does that mean that judgment is something you want to stay away from then? Like, because it's critical and it's kind of harsh and it's like I mean, people that are judgy, I know that's a tendency that I have, is to be judgy, and I think it's not it's not an attractive
I want to ask you and ask all the listeners,
yeah.
give me one time you judged anybody and you got something good out of it. Just one time.
Well, I think that I think that we do have to judge to be, we're making choices all the time. You're going to get in the car with that person, or you're going to hire this person, or you want to be around that person or not, right?
That's assessment, not judgment.
Oh, okay. So what's the difference?
Very good. And we talked about this. An assessment is a logical approach to whatever is happening. So you take data about the situation and you analyze it without emotions. Judgment is when you get your emotions involved with it. Yeah. So as an example, when we talk about Steve Jobs and we say it was brutal or it was bad, or all those words are connected to our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
If we say, this is what happened, we know some of the story, we don't know everything. But because we don't know everything, it would be difficult to say if he did or did not do the right thing. That's an assessment.
Right.
Okay. So the difference between the two is emotionally involved.
Yes.
When we judge every time we go down in energy.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I could feel this heaviness in my chest in my body. I could feel this heaviness when the conversation started going that way.
Right.
It wasn't light. It wasn't light anymore. It wasn't inviting. It wasn't any of those things,
Of course it's not. Yeah. And I'm actually, it may not sound great that the discussion happened, but actually I'm glad it happened, because it gives your audience actual real-time thing to see the difference in energy. We did not plan it. It just happened. And they can feel where the energy was and how it took a sag and how now it's going to pick up. Because now we know the difference between judging and assessing. Did we really assess or did we really judge? Okay, I think we really judged. Okay. Here we take a responsibility.
So that's, for me, I'm thinking that, well, I'm going to remember this, because if I'm doing a lot of judging in my life, then that's probably, not going to get me, maybe I'm right, maybe that's where it is, but it doesn't feel good. It doesn't have a nice energy, and it's probably not going to get me where I want to go a lot of the times. Right. And so, like, if you have colleagues, if you're working on a team and And, again, you talk about the difference between assessing, okay, well, they didn't really show up, or, they didn't really do this, but a lot of office politics is really judgy, right?
Right. Right.
And, that's would be a hard thing. One of the really onerous things I would think for people to be dealing with every day, right?
It's typical, and that's how we learned to do things. That doesn't mean that's how we have to live. Excuse me.
Yeah. So, Saber, you know what? We're probably starting to get out of time here, and this has been so great. It's just the tip of the iceberg for people. I would really encourage people to check out Saber Waves. Go to saberwaves.com and check out your podcast. Will there be links there to the podcast?
Yes, actually, if you go to the website and you scroll down, not too far, you will see video on a few things, and the video will explain to you what the website has. One of the things you can find on the website is you can download a e-workbook, this interactive PDF that will ask you a few questions about your goals and what you would like to achieve, and will zone basically on what makes a difference to you. You talked about success earlier, and the definition of success changes from one person to another. This actually will help anybody who downloads the book to find out what success means to them now, and it will give them a good way that they can see in front of them how they actually see success, and if that's how they thought about success. And if that's not the way they want to, they can still work on the book. They find their goals that they would like to achieve so they can determine success. Also, they will find next to it the link to the podcast, and it will take them to all the 140 or over episodes. And if they have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, and that's true. And you do, and the podcasts are usually like 15 to 20 minutes long, right? They're not an hour. So
No.
Lots of times I would listen to 2 or 3 of them in a row because they build on each other. And it's saberwaves.com. So SABERWAVES.com, presenting workshops and doing keynotes on peak performance for professionals and people in all walks of life, really leaders and all kinds of things. So workshops really would be the thing. If people wanted to have you come in and talk to their team and work with the team and really help everybody up their game, that would be the thing.
Absolutely. Welcome anytime.
All right. Well, I so appreciate you taking the time to come and share all this knowledge, wonderful knowledge with everybody. And great to see you again. You're looking good, man.
Thank you. You're looking good too. You shine and you get younger every day.
I know. Hey, I turned 65 yesterday. I'm getting up there, man. Yeah.
But today you turned 65, you said?
Yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I know. It's pretty good. Yeah.
Happy birthday. I'm happy with your progress. I'm happy with what you've done. You're doing amazing things. Thank you for having me here. And I hope this benefited the people who are listening. And again, I'm happy to answer any of their questions if they have to. And if they don't feel talking directly, but they have something they would like to be talked about, either in articles or in podcast, or that's absolutely fine. Send an email to the team. We'll get you a request and we'll make an episode for you.
Awesome. That's pretty great. All right, Saber Waves. So Saber Fatnassi. Yeah. Thank you so much, Saber.
Pleasure. Thank you. Take care.
Appreciate it, man.